He should be celebrating his 53rd birthday today with his parents, Ruth and Phil, and his sister Shelly. But instead, we are remembering the brilliant mind and kind heart that were stolen far too soon. And of course, we are talking about Dan Markel.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning journalist, Joel Waldman.
What's up, STS Nation? Welcome to Surviving the Survivor. It is the show that brings you the very best guests in all of true crime. And today would have, in fact, been Dan Markel's 53rd birthday. But as you know, his life was cut brutally short back in July of 2014, shot twice in the head by a set of hitmen. And that eventually was linked back to his own wife's family, ex-wife at the time. We're talking about Wendy Adelson's family, and you guys know, as they say, as Paul Harvey used to say, and now you know the rest of the story, with Charlie Adelson both convicted, and now Mama Donna Adelson convicted as well. Here today are a couple of friends of Dan Markel to remember Dan on his birthday. First up, you've seen and met him before, Jeremy Cohen from Tallahassee. Welcome to the show, Jeremy. And then we've got Josh Berman coming to us from the Big Apple, New York City. And Dave Arenberg's going to bounce in, I believe, in about 20 minutes. All personal friends at one point with Danny Markel. So, Jeremy, first off to you. I mean, you've been on the show before. What is this day like for you? It's obviously not a day where you have fond memory. I mean, where you do have fond memories, but you're obviously thinking of the murder that happened back in 2014. So in essence, sort of a bittersweet day. What is it like for you?
Sure. So thanks for having me. Yeah, Danny passed away 11 years ago now. And so, as time passes, and we all kind of our lives, he's not as, top of mind, sadly, but there are milestones, things like, when trials are happening, milestones like today, where he is more top of mind, I know for me. And so, it's sad to think about what Danny would be like. I got 53 years old, what his life would look like, what his relationship with his friends and his sons would be like today, where his career would be. And it's just such a shame that his life was cut so short. So I definitely miss him today.
Yeah, it is. It's a rough day, bittersweet, as I said. Josh, to you, first time on the show, first time we're hearing from you, so we really appreciate it. Just take us back in time. I mean, how did you meet Dan? Where did you meet him? How did you meet him?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you for having me, and thank you for everything you've done in your podcast to keep Dan's memory present for the world. It means a lot to us. And by us, I mean his incredible network of friends. Dan and I met, gosh, it must have been 1997. We were law students together. And Dan was really close with my roommate. And like one day he walked into the house to hang out with my roommate, his good friend, whose name is Shoshana. And in his like own super unique and Dan way, he just assumed that we were from that moment on best friends, and was super warm and familiar, and would invite me out like every Friday night to go to the Hillel at Harvard and go over to the Chabad for dinner. And like all of a sudden the guy's texting me and emailing me, and we're it's as if we just went from 0 to 100 and became close friends from that day on.
Yeah, and Josh, so you went to Harvard Law, obviously, because that's where you met Dan, and now you're a litigator in New York City. Do you ever ponder where Dan's career trajectory would have taken him? I mean, he had the big paying job that you likely have right now. He gave that up to go to FSU. He wanted to teach. He wanted to make it a top 10 school. What would his future have held?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it all the time. Of the group of us, Dan was like in his DNA, the scholar. I always wanted to get up on my feet and be a litigator and argue in court. And Dan was always the guy who was thinking about the theory and these high-minded ideas. And he just sort of had a step on most people intellectually. And he was an ambitious guy and a productive guy. I mean, I used to kid him all the time. There was a little window while Dan was looking for professor jobs where he was working as a lawyer in DC, and we would talk at like noon on a Saturday, and I'd say, "Hey, like, how's your morning?" I mean, and I had like woken up an hour before. I was on my cup of coffee, and he was like, "Well, I got up at 6 today, and I did 3 hours of writing, and then I went to the gym, and I was like, dude, I have no words for you." Like, you know what I don't do at 6 a.m. Saturday? Get up and write articles on legal scholarship. I can only imagine. And first of all, he was hitting it out of the park at FSU. He was not constantly, but he was regularly in New York giving talks and speeches, and he was at this colloquium or that conference. And when Prof's blog started taking off, Ethan Lieb and Dan Markel and this crew of legal academics had started something really special. It was getting traction, and I sort of can only imagine his star would have continued to rise.
Yeah, I'm going to go with touch Josh heavy. Apologies, Jeremy, just because Josh is going to have to probably bounce in about 20 minutes or so, and then Dave will come on. So I just want, and we've never heard from Josh, which is really interesting. But Josh, I don't need to tell you, Harvard Law is pretty rarefied air, not an easy place to get into, not an easy place to get a degree from. So even among your peers, I guess is what I'm getting at, even among your fellow intelligent peers, did you guys consider Dan sort of a notch above intellectually? In other words, did he stand out in a sea of smart people?
Like, the quick answer is yes, but that's not how I thought about Dan. The way I thought about Dan was just my buddy. And I'm sort of glad to have an opportunity to answer that question, because what stood out about Dan to me the most was his relentless work ethic. I mean, when you're around a lot of smart people, and I certainly was, and maybe I was out of my depth, but Dan took a year off in the middle of law school to like teach undergraduates and do research, and he was so incredibly motivated. So that stood out to me a lot. But really, more than anything, Dan was my buddy, and we spent time giving each other grief and kidding around. I would kind of talk about his latest girlfriend. He would talk about mine, and it's not like we sat around talking about his legal scholarship. We just had a good time together.
Yeah,
and we're young guys. We're kids. We're in our 20s.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's weird because the passage of time continues, but continues sadly without him. Jeremy, a lot of questions coming in already. Here's an interesting one. Jeremy, I don't know if you're even comfortable answering it, but I'll ask it. Do you plan to reach out to Dan's sons once they're 18? Is that something that you have even pondered or thought about, Jeremy?
All right, that's a good question. It is certainly something that I have thought about, and I really am hopeful that I have a relationship in the future with Dan's sons, with Ben and Lincoln. And I've talked to Dan's parents, Ruth and Phil, about that, and they are, obviously, working to have more of a presence in their grandsons' lives, and that's something that I'm hopeful will continue to kind of grow in the years ahead. I have not had contact with them. The last time I saw them was at Dan's funeral service, and I can only hope that I'll be able to have contact with them in the future. I have no way of getting in touch with them, and I'm not sure what that would look like or how that would take shape. But I hope to have those conversations with those boys sometime in the future.
Yeah, and here's a photo that you gave us for today's show. Where's this from? Who's the other guy in the picture? And I think
Sure.
and the young lady in green in the photo. Who are these people?
Sure. So that's in green. That's my daughter Molly, who and she was sitting on Wendy's lap. This is at Wendy's 30th birthday party celebration, and obviously that's Danny there, and then Rob Adelson is the one to Danny's left. So it was a great day. Be happy to kind of tell you more about that my memories from that birthday party. But yeah, that's my daughter Molly. She was close with Wendy and Danny, and with their boys as well. They all were in preschool together and lived down the street from each other. And um, she was obviously very comfortable with Wendy, having played with her quite a bit as she was growing up.
Yeah, and wow, that is Rob Adelson. I couldn't tell at first, but now it makes perfect sense. So this was a surprise 30th birthday for Wendy, and we're Donna and Harvey, because I think another photo I saw, Donna's in the background. Were Donna and Harvey at this? What was this party like?
Sure. So yeah, it was a surprise party for Wendy. Yeah, this was April of 2009, and I mean, just really happy times. So there was a lot of orchestration to put it together and keep it a surprise for Wendy. And Rob and Rob's wife Aretha came up. This is the only time I met them. And Charlie came up for it, and then Donna and Harvey were here. But they were always in Tallahassee, and so. But it was special to have kind of the rest of the extended family and some close friends in for a place called Food Glorious Food, kind of in our neighborhood here in Tallahassee. We had this room rented out, and Wendy was surprised and really moved by all these people coming in town for her. It was a great time, and I mean, you look how happy Danny was there. I mean, this is the two of them were in such a good place in their lives and in their marriage, and it just seemed like the whole world was ahead of them. So it's crazy to think of all the things that unfolded in the years ahead. But
Yeah.
this night, April 2009, was a really happy time.
Wow. And literally like 5 years and maybe May, June, July, 3 months later, it would all take a crazy turn, just 5 years later. So life is incredibly unpredictable. Here's another photo. This one from Josh, courtesy of Josh Berman here. Josh, what are we looking at here? This looks like another happy occasion. Tell us about the picture.
Yeah. Yeah, that was my wedding in 2003. I'm in the middle with that goofy looking white vest, and then there's Dan just to my left, right in the foreground of the photo. And this always makes me smile because I don't know if I texted him or called him that I'd gotten engaged. And the next day, Dan calls me and says, "Hey, what are the groomsmen wearing?" And I'll never forget it because I hadn't remotely had a chance to like think about having groomsmen, let alone ask Dan, would you do me the honor of being a groomsman? It he was just so filled with joy, and he just like assumed, of course I'll be Berman's groomsman, or one of them, and he was right. And he Dan had a really, really rare gift of sharing in other people's joy. Like I remember spending time with him at my wedding, and he was so happy. This was all before Wendy. He was still sort of meeting people and dating women and looking for his his destined love and all that. And none of that mattered to him. He was like in these moments, he was just there to be happy for me, and it was incredibly sweet. Um, yeah. I don't know why this just leapt to mind, but I don't know if you know this, but my middle son was born very shortly after Dan was killed, and he's named after Dan.
I did not know that.
Yeah, his middle name is Daniel, and his Hebrew name is Daniel Eliezer, which was Danny's name.
Wow. That just gave me goosebumps. And right on cue here, Phil Markel's in the chat. Proud to say that Phil has become a friend of mine, and I'm happy. I texted him earlier. I said, been a Yankees fan since 1977, I think, and I now told him I will be rooting for the Blue Jays the rest of the way through. They're playing really well, but I don't know if you guys can see. I've got a Justice for Dan Markel hat, and then Phil saw that we have these. So I wore this for Phil today. This says "Stay tuned," which are now the infamous words of Georgia Kaplan. At least if you're an Adelson, she's been saying "Stay tuned," and she said that regarding Wendy. So I thought it was fitting to wear that today. But Josh, back to you because your time is limited. I mean, knowing that Phil's in the chat and you have an opportunity to speak to him directly, what do you want to say to him?
Oh, I don't know that there's anything I can say other than we think of him every day. Like, time does its trick and memories dim to some degree, but not that much. Every time I read an article, about one of the latest trials or the legal proceedings or anything like that, there's a description of the most recent events, and then the reporter or the writer kind of rewinds and says, Markel, comma 41. And every time I see that, I think, no, so he's not 41. That's the problem, right? He should have been 50 or 51, and now here it is, 53, and we miss him. Like, the world is less warm and less kind because Dan's not here. And less fun. It's less fun. Dan was fun. People don't talk about that as much. When he came to New York, it was like a really upscale Cuban place called Calle Ocho on the Upper West Side. And there were just too many friends for him to go see individually. So we would hold these like, come see Dan and Wendy nights, or Dan nights, and then eventually it was Dan and Wendy nights. And we would all just go there and converge at this one restaurant and hang out with them.
It just breaks my heart seeing these pictures. I mean, Jeremy, did you give us this one as well? Jeremy, I think you sent this one over, but this
yes, I did.
Yeah, so tell us about this. Where is this taken? Roughly the year and all that.
Sure. And first off, Josh, I just love hearing those stories. That brings back a lot of memories, and I love the relationship that you have with Dan. And I hadn't heard this before. I just love that. Yes, I took this picture of Danny and his boys. This is at a place called the Tallahassee Museum, or the Junior Museum here, and it was just a weekend that we went, and he was having a tough time. This is kind of in the heart of the divorce things, and it was a good day for us to get out and walk around and kind of be in nature. And I love this picture. And you can't really see the boys in the way this picture is laid out on screen here, but it just, I shared it with him, so he would kind of have it as a keepsake from that day. And all three of them looked so good and so happy on that day. And it was just, I remember he was going through a tough time, but it was otherwise a really good day.
And Josh, to you, this question, it's amazing that this case has reached global proportions. Dan's presence has reached the entire world. I was just talking about this with someone in the quote unquote business yesterday, that, our people are exponentially more interested in this case. And we do a lot of different stories, but exponentially more interested in this case than the others. And you knew Dan. It's got to be surreal. Is it for you that, that this has gotten attention on Dateline and 2020 and I think soon to be documentaries and Wondery? I mean, it's got to be very surreal for you.
Yeah, yes and no, Joel, to tell you the truth, because Dan was a little bit, what a horrible turn of phrase to think about, but he was a little bit larger than life. Like, even at Harvard, which is filled with a lot of people with pretty big egos and who are pleased with themselves, Dan really did stand out. They do like a funny show every year. And there was a character in the show based on Dan, because everyone knew him. He was like, I think 500 students a year, but everyone knew. And so it was easy to be anonymous, but everyone knew Dan. And, he was just like a beaming smile walking around doing his thing. And so like on the one hand, yeah, it's so surreal that people from like the four corners of the earth are focused on this. On the other hand, maybe that's what happens when we lose someone who had that like extra gear of warmth. And like Dan was the guy. You graduate school and you get married and you have kids, and it's so much harder to stay close with your friends. Everyone sort of drifts and everyone just sort of accepts that as a fact of life.
Yeah.
You know who didn't? Dan. Like, after he was killed, I went back to my voicemails and I was like, I'm never not returning a voicemail again, because I had like, if you didn't call him back, he just called you the next day, because he refused relentlessly to let his close friends drift apart. And that's, I think when the world loses someone like that, people stand up and take notice.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really amazing way to put it. And I guess everyone will take note next time you don't return a message. You never know when it's the last message you're going to get. Jeremy, to you, I mean, how was he able, a lot of times we have Stephen Webster on here along with Louis Baptiste, and Louis Baptiste was a student of Dan's, and he's now a law partner of Stephen Webster. And both of them always end the show talking about the father he was, and that his door to his office was covered with drawings and pictures of his children. How was he at balancing all these things? Being a law professor, Jeremy, being a husband, then being out on his own with the kids. How was he able to do all that?
Yeah, he was, I mean, just such a special person, just a rare breed. And, I think Josh said earlier about how big his heart was. We all know about how much, how sharp he was and his intellect and kind of how well respected his scholarship was all over the world. But I think his heart was even bigger, and that was reflected in how he was treated his kids and how much focus he put on them. Right? I mean, he truly thrived and was never happier than he was when he was around his two boys. And so, educated man, just on the floor, goofing around and playing with toys with his kids. I mean, that was just his happy place. And so. Not many people are built like that.
Yeah. Finding a life balance is incredibly hard. And to Josh's point, I think it gets harder a little bit as you get older, because everyone's got their families and their kids, and you just sort of get diluted from it all. But Josh, to you, so you get married in 2003, and then I think it's a few years later that Dan marries Wendy. Do you remember the first time you hear about Wendy? I mean, was Dan over the moon? Was he questioning it? Do you remember sort of the
No, that's
story?
an understatement. Yeah, no, he was crazy about her. He brought her to New York. He brought her to Cayo Ocho. He was beaming. They called each other the Bears, like these pet names for each other. And like, obviously, like any good friend, I just made fun of him for that. I was like, oh, like, gag, dude. Are you seriously going to come out in public and just call each other bear and start kissing in the bar? And I got to know Wendy, and I actually wound up emceeing the rehearsal dinner. I was one of Dan's groomsmen with a bunch of our other good buddies, and I emceed his rehearsal dinner, and he, like, Dan, there was no question. Once Dan met Wendy, he was gone. It was, like, I lived through a whole bunch of prior girlfriends with him who again, we're young guys. So, he'd date someone for a few months and then we'd chat about it and he'd move on or they'd break up, and he met Wendy and it was like game, set, match. That's at least the feeling I had.
And I mean, usually friends are good in terms of having their radar on about whether someone's a good catch, a bad catch. I have friends that who got married, and some of us were like, maybe we should say something. We never. But what was your reaction to her when you initially met her? Were you on board with Dan? Were you like, this is a great woman, he should marry her, and she seems fine, family seems great, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know her family at all. I think the first time I met them was the wedding, but she, 100%, she seemed like a great girl. Over the course of their marriage, Dan and I had talks because things weren't always easy between them. And I think those talks have to stay between Dan and me.
Yeah.
I remember us taking a walk around Washington Square Park not very long before he was killed and right before their divorce. And he was, so I'll say this: I'll never think of Dan as a professor first and a dad and a friend second. For me, it's like husband and father, friend, and then professor. But yeah, I think I answered more than you asked, but
no. And I think that's a great way to look at him and remember him. Dave Arenberg has joined the chat, and in a couple of minutes, I think. Josh, you just let me know when you have to bounce. Josh is in the process of fixing offices, law offices. When he first came on, I thought this guy was the first ever Harvard Law firefighter. It looked like a firefighter badge.
Yeah.
Not,
It's
Dave,
moving day. I don't have to wear a shirt and tie. So.
Yeah. Dave Arenberg, everyone knows Dave. Dave is a former Florida state attorney. I was saying, Dave, bittersweet day. I mean, you've got memories of Dan, but obviously he was taken from us way too soon. It should have been his 53rd birthday. Phil is in the chat. Phil Markel. I don't know if you want to say anything to him specifically or just reflect on what this day is like for you, Dave.
Well, it's thank you for letting me be part of this. And I love the story about
and by the way, I don't know, do you know Josh? You guys are all Harvard Law guys, so I figure you all know each other. But Josh Berman is a friend of Dan, and then you've got Jeremy Cohen, who I think you know from Tallahassee. But just
hello, yeah, hey Jeremy, hey Josh, and it's great to be on with you and Phil. No, it's an honor to be on with you guys who can swap such stories. You know, I knew Danny from Tallahassee. I did not know him at the wedding stage and the dating stage of his life. And when I knew him, he was already established as a law professor. He was active in the Harvard Club, and we just bonded over a bunch of things and mutual friends. And I'd see him when I was living in Tallahassee as a state senator. And I did not know him at Harvard Law School, which is interesting. That's why I don't know. I didn't think I knew you either, Josh, at Harvard Law School.
I was class of 2000. I don't know if you're same year.
Okay. No, I was class in 96. So I'm clearly old, and thank you for reminding me of that. So class in 96, but Danny and I were only a year apart, but he took time off between college and law school. He was always doing great things. And although Harvard, yes, I saw Breeze comment, Harvard has thousands of alums, but if you're in the school at the same time, law school is not that big of a place. Chances are maybe you would at least see each other. So it's very possible that he and I had seen each other, but we just didn't become friends until Tallahassee. And then, I just knew how much he loved his kids. That was obvious. And I would never think that this would be his fate. I mean, no one deserves his fate, let alone a guy who was so committed to his family and was killed as a result of that. And also who gave so much. He could have been making big money like everyone else who graduated Harvard Law School in New York, working at a sweatshop. I don't know if you did that, Josh, but from the looks of you, you've done pretty well in life, because if you can show up at 4:30 p.m. wearing a T-shirt, that means you're balling. The rest of us working stiffs have to dress like this.
Yeah.
Josh now owns the firm. It is the Josh Berman firm.
Is that right? I'd like to put you on with our chairman if you want to repeat that.
I hesitate to go here, but I think it's important. So, I mean, Josh, you were just talking about the wedding and all that. And you talked about taking a walk around, I think it was Washington Square Park. And then 2014 rolls around. Can you tell us where you were the day you got the news that Dan was killed? And I guess what your immediate reaction was to that?
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget it. It was early Saturday morning. So Dan was shot on Friday, and I didn't know anything. I went to bed that night, just happy as a clam. Probably had like 3 voicemails from Dan that I was meaning to call back. And at 9:00, Saturday morning, I was like lounging in bed, and I got a phone call from Dan's wonderful partner from post his divorce, his new girlfriend, who I'd come to know. And she said, "Josh, I have terrible news." And I knew something was wrong, because why on earth would she be calling me at like 9 a.m. on a Saturday? And my wife was out, of all places, getting like a manicure. And it was like, shock doesn't even begin to describe it. And of all days, that was summer camp visiting day for my eldest son, who's now 20. And so we had this is all happening. And it was insane. Like, what are you talking about? Dan is dead. Like, what? This is just nuts. But also, I have to get in the car and drive 7 hours with spotty cell service and go see my kid and have this nice summer camp visiting day, and I don't want to, I'm trying to kind of hold it together, and intermittently losing it on the drive up to upstate New York, and then trying to get cell service. And, I can't remember if the detectives had already started to reach out or if it was just the next day, but there were like a million calls flying around our friend group. And like, it was hard to believe that it was real. Like people get divorced. I didn't hate Wendy when they left. I thought she could have done it in a much nicer and gentler way. But I don't know, like it happens, it's a bummer, but never did it, like in my wildest dreams, occur to me. And I knew she wanted to go to Miami. Like Dan knew that wasn't a secret to anybody, but like getting him killed. And I don't mean to imply that Wendy did it, Georgia will do her incredible work on that along with law enforcement. But like bizarre is a Titanic understatement. It's like you just don't really have any words. You can't get your head around it. So that's what the day was like.
Yeah. Super chat here from Nikki Cuds in honor of Dan Markel. May the Markels find some peace knowing how much we have all loved getting to know him. There you go. Josh, in light of these conversations that I don't want you to tell us what they were, what they were specifically about, but I assume they were about the marriage coming apart. I mean, when you get the call that Dan is no longer with us, I don't know that if it was one of my friends, I would have thought, well, the wife's family hired someone. But did your mind go there? Did you think the family was involved?
Yeah, of course it went there. Like right away, without any detail, without any thinking that it was Donna who got Charlie involved, who then went to Luis Rivera and Sigfredo Garcia, and that there was some woman, a middle woman named Katie Magbanowa. I mean, that's just all Byzantine and weird, and it all came to light through this almost unbelievable work that Craig Eisen did and the FBI did. Like what they did is like, I'm not sure people understand how heroic it was. And these guys are poring over like months worth of like Easy Pass records, or I guess in Florida it's called Sun Pass. And like, how many hours of city bus footage do they have to watch before they realize, oh my God, that's Dan's car. And like, oh my God, that's another car that's following him. And they watched from another camera. And it was so, but yeah, my head went right there because, Dan would call me during the acrimonious divorce proceedings and say like, she wants to take the kids to Miami. And I was pretty clear on that. Like, I don't mind revealing this because I don't feel like it's anything that was particularly in confidence between Dan and me. But my own feeling was like, no, man, like she's free to be divorced from you. No, you can't force her to stay married to you, but she can't take your kids, buddy. And if anything, Dan was calmer than I was about it. And she took the kids in for a few days. She wouldn't say where she was. And Dan was really even keeled about it. And he was like, I want things to be amicable and cordial. Who knows if we can't even save the marriage? And I was like, are you out of your mind, man? You got to call the cops. You just take your kids. And we don't know where they are. And Dan was the calm one. Dan was the one who kept his poise, even in this incredible, painful time. And just like, if you had any doubt about what a kind, composed guy he was, look at how he acted in the middle of this horrible time in his life. He didn't want to get divorced.
Yeah.
So,
These are unbelievable stories. Jeremy, I mean, same question to you. I assume you remember the day. And did your suspicion turn to the Adelson family? I mean, I don't know. Obviously, Dan was confiding in Josh about the marriage. So, I think he had, knew kind of what was going on. But how about your personal relationship with him then?
Sure. Yes. I mean, of course, I get that day. It's just awful. It's just so tragic. And, I'm a little bit humbled here telling my story of how much it was for me when Phil is listening in. And obviously I just can't fathom, just the pain of the Markel family every day. But yes, I mean, I remember where I was when I got the call from my wife that there was a shooting on our street and the police tape everywhere, and she was trying to get to the bottom of it. And over the course of the day, we were kind of gathering more, details about what happened. We understood that it was Andy. My wife called the hospital and confirmed that he was indeed being treated there. And I went and saw him late that night in the ICU. And it's just, such an awful day. We did talk to detectives, I know many others were contacted to, understand it or to, try to find out more about it. And I mean, I didn't know of any enemies that he had, but we all knew about how this acrimonious divorce. And, that was my one and only thought was that, the Adelsons family had to have, that was the only thing to point to of any kind of a motive, that didn't think it was a robbery, right? Nothing was stolen from his house, so it had to have been a targeted thing. And those were his only enemies at the time. So, I don't know anything about the specific people behind it, and I'm not going to go there, but I mean, that's what I told the detectives was that's the family to look at for sure.
Yeah, and Dave Ehrenberg, I mean, as a Florida State Attorney for Palm Beach County, all about investigations, and to Josh's point, probably kind of the most, understated thing about this entire case is the work that law enforcement did. Like there should be an entire show, docuseries just about how they cracked this case, because this was almost next to unsolvable at one point, they thought, and they just did incredible work. I guess, did you have faith at the time that this would be solved at some point?
I did after it happened, and then the longer we waited, it was so frustrating. It was like maybe this would never be solved. That went through my mind. I didn't know all the evidence that they had and had been collected, but it was peculiar that they couldn't make an arrest for so long, a couple of years or a year and a half. It was when, they have so much technology nowadays to track people, cell phones, cameras everywhere, people talk. And it was because you had the neighbor who was attentive and ran to, Dan's aid and saw the Prius leaving. That was the key. I don't know what would have happened had that not happened. And, I just have to think about, in hearing the stories here on your show, how cruel the Adelson family has been through this unnecessarily. Dan did not want to get divorced, as was said. And yet Donna was jubilant in sticking the knife as deeply in Dan as possible by relishing that Dan looked like a ghost, was panicking after he was supposed to give a speech. He was giving a speech at this conference up north, and they called him to surprise him for maximum effect, for maximum cruelty, to hurt him the most, where he could not even continue giving this speech because his whole life was crashing down. They relished in it. They were jubilant about that. What kind of people are like that? And then the other story is how Donna was shocked and surprised that the son, I think it was Ben, expressed sadness after he lost his father. Like after this all happened, she couldn't believe, she was incredulous that their son, I think it was Ben, was sad after he lost his father. What sociopath feels like that? And that tells you all you need to know about the family.
It's all great points right there. Josh, back to you, and please let me know if you have to bounce, because I don't want to. I want to be mindful. I want to be mindful of time.
After this, but please go on.
Yeah. So these revelations that came out during the trials, these emails between Donna and Wendy, where Donna, I mean, to Dave's point about these sociopaths, where she's literally telling them, and you're Jewish yourself, to dress the boys in these Nazi youth uniforms, and also suggesting that they get baptized. And you were talking about Dan's turn toward Judaism, not away from it, and the whole wedding not being kosher. And this, I mean, but when these revelations came to light about these emails, did you just say to yourself at one point, like, wow, you just really don't know who somebody is? Like, what's going on behind closed doors? Because this family is a bunch of crazy people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think I let's put it this way. In my own mind, there were a lot more 4-letter words
Mm.
that popped
Yeah.
up beyond the way you just eloquently put it. The first hint I had was, so it was really important to Dan that the wedding be kosher.
Mhm.
Dan wasn't like a mega Jew. He was a traditional guy, and he liked the warmth of it and the services. He wasn't like super doctrinally fierce or anything like that.
Mhm.
But the reason Dan wanted the wedding to be kosher is that some of our friends, some of Dan's friends, were really observant Jews, and kashrut really mattered to them.
Mhm.
And it was unthinkable to Dan that someone could come to his wedding and not be able to like eat and drink freely. And I guess the Adelsons just lied to him. I mean, it seemed generous to me that they were, contributing money towards this really beautiful wedding, and it was a really nice venue. And but to say like, yeah, don't worry, we'll make sure it's all kosher. And I remember Dan coming up to me. We were like in line to go to march into the ceremony. And Dan had gotten us these silver flasks with our initials as groomsmen's gifts.
Mhm.
And legend has it, I neither confirm nor deny that I might have filled mine up in advance and had a sip or two on the way into the ceremony. And I remember Dan coming up, at least this is my memory, I think it's right, coming up to me with a kind of stricken look on his face,
Mhm.
saying, Josh, there's like shrimp platters out at the hors d'oeuvres. And, folks wouldn't necessarily know this, but shellfish are not traditionally, they don't fall under the umbrella of traditional kosher food. And he was really shaken. And that was the first time I was like, that's really bizarre. But there's a quantum leap from like, that seems sneaky and kind of not nice,
Mhm.
to like murdering him. So, I had a raised eyebrow, but not in my wildest dreams that I think it was going to end that way.
Yeah. For some reason, that reminds me, my dear father who has passed always used to say as a doctor, he said, there's no such thing as a sudden heart attack. It builds, you get a little plaque, a little more, you die suddenly, but there's no such thing as a sudden heart attack here. The cruelty started small and it built up. Josh, before I let you go, and thanks again for being here.
Yeah, it's my honor.
Yeah. So, I know you obviously kept tabs on this all the years through. Charlie Adelson, the most notable Adelson prior to Donna, but now they're both convicted. What was it like for you to watch Donna Adelson be convicted on count 1 here, first-degree murder, and that wail of hers, knowing that she is now going to go to, and the sentencing is supposed to now be Monday. She's going to go to prison for the rest of her natural life. I don't know how much longer that is, but what is that like for you to watch these trials?
So the honest answer to that is it's been a progression. So the first trial I think was Garcia and Katie, or it was just Garcia.
Yeah.
I was in the back of an Uber when the guilty verdict came out in Detroit. I had a case in Detroit.
Mhm.
And I'm in the back of an Uber, and you can live stream. You can watch these trials live in Florida. That first one, I think it was before Sarah was involved. If my memory's right, it was just Sarah. Sorry, just Georgia. And the verdict comes out, and I remember saying out loud in the back of an Uber with like tears streaming down my face, "Burn in hell, mother effer." And then, so then a few years go by, and at that point it was like pretty clear that Katie and Charlie were involved and Donna were involved. And with each trial, like there's some gratification to seeing Donna get served with justice. But the more time goes by, the more I'm focused on like, good, that's what needs to happen, but it's not bringing Dan back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, I mean, I got to ask you this, and feel free to not answer if you're not comfortable, but in your heart of hearts, do you feel like Wendy was complicit? Do you feel like they should pursue her?
you
You should have brought the flask. I might have gotten an answer easier.
Yeah. I'm not going to answer because not because it's not the right question or because I don't want to give freely, but because my feelings and suspicions are irrelevant. It's certainly hard for me to believe that the instant it happened, she didn't know exactly what was going on. But if I were to answer that directly, what should they go after Wendy? What do I believe in my heart of hearts? You just can't give an opinion on whether somebody's a murderer. Like if you asked, am I pissed at her? Is it really hard for me to imagine that she? Those are easier questions to answer, but I don't want to say it. Like you just can't throw that around. Like that question kind of comes down to like, do you think Wendy participated in this murder? And I really want to leave that to Ms. Kappelman and Ms. Dugan and to law enforcement, because boy, if she was, that's a problem.
Josh Berman, friend of Dan Markel's, groomsman in each other's weddings. I really appreciate being here. I hope you'll come back. And if there are any other friends of Dan's who are comfortable speaking, just please send them our way, and I'll shoot you a text to thank you post show. But we appreciate you being here.
You bet. Thank you so much for everything you've done to keep Dan's memory alive.
Thank you, man. Have a great day. Dave Aronberg, for you, I mean, it's twofold. You're a Florida State attorney, so you were the equivalent of Jack Campbell, but you're also a friend. So what's it been like for you to watch kind of these wheels of justice grind, albeit slowly?
I think they've done a masterful job because this is a smaller office up there in Tallahassee. And not sure they have the bandwidth to take on the entire family all at once, or does not have the evidence yet. I mean, the reason why they've been able to be so successful is because they've meticulously gone one by one. And if they didn't have, for example, Katie McBanua behind bars, or at least if they didn't have her in the sights, would they have gotten Charlie? And one by one, if they didn't have Charlie behind bars, would they have gotten Donna on her way to flee, which was a crucial part of the evidence against her consciousness of guilt? I mean, it seems like by going one at a time, they've been able to collect evidence they would not otherwise have had. And that's the same for Wendy. Perhaps they got something against Wendy on Donna's cell phone when they got it against her will on the jetway, walking on the plane to Vietnam. So I think they've done a great job. Georgia Kappelman has become a national figure with her outstanding litigation techniques. She is really good. In fact, you remember when she had cross-examined Charlie, and Charlie is so smooth and stuck to a story, and you were concerned that she did not dent him. And you
were not, Aronberg. You stood firm. You said that she did exactly what she needed to do.
Yeah, I said it's not like Perry Mason. This is not Matlock where you get the defendant to cry on the stand, break down, and said, I did it, you got me. That's not the real world. The real world is you get your little hits here and there, and then you bring it all together in your close. And that's what she did, and it was a quick guilty verdict. So yeah, kudos to Jack Campbell, Georgia Kappelman, and their entire team, because they've done an amazing job, and I don't think they're done. I'd say, and my prediction has been, the next charge will happen within 30 days of the sentencing of Donna. I stick by that. I say before Thanksgiving is my guess. Obviously, it's just a guess. Yeah. But I think it's going to happen sooner than later.
Well, whoever was on multiple devices at once just now, Dave Aronberg, predicting we will see the next indictment within 30 days of Donna's sentencing, which has been moved up, as we understand, to this Monday at 3:00. We're going to bring that to you live. And I don't do this based on any inside information from Jack Campbell, but just my my feeling and the way that this case, the timeline you've seen, this the type of thing that's happened. It's happened quickly after the next one. And I think that they wanted to wait till after the sentencing before they went to the grand jury. So yeah, I would say before Thanksgiving. So I know that's 45 days or 50 days after sentencing, but yes, you get my drift. Who knows? Maybe it'll be an hour or
maybe an hour.
Same time. Who knows? Yeah, we got this super chat in there from Nikki Cuds already. Thank you, Nikki. Jeremy, to you, a few more questions, and then we'll get some final thoughts. But how do you think what would Dan think of this sort of attention on his case? You think he would shun it? You think he would use it as a legal lesson? What do you think his thoughts would be on it?
I think Danny would have a lot of thoughts on this, like he did on everything, and I do not think he would shun it. He was never afraid of the spotlight or a microphone. It's not to say that he was in it to try to, pump up his own name necessarily, but no, he didn't shy away from anything at all. I think he would have found this to be a really fascinating legal exercise, and would have embraced the spotlight when if it was shined on it. And I hate that he's not able to weigh in on so many things right now, but including things like this case. I think he would have had a really interesting perspective, and I hate that his voice isn't heard today.
Yeah, and is there anything in your opinion that the public doesn't? The public only hears these like snippets, but is there anything that you would want the public to know about him that hasn't been said yet? Maybe.
I mean, I think people like you have done a good job actually of painting a picture of Danny as way more than just some, gifted Harvard educated professor. I mean, that's the one thing that I would just underscore is just how great a dad he was and friend he was. And all the stories of him having the pictures from his boys up on his door at FSU. All that's true, and that was just a part of the fabric of who Danny was. It was just such a high priority for him to be present and there for his kids, in addition to all the accolades that his scholarship brought him.
Yeah. Dave Ehrenberg, we're going to do a show on this tomorrow, 12:30, with Dr. G Explains and my beloved mother, who's a licensed therapist. And I don't know if you've seen the video, but there's video, and we don't have it right now at the moment, but there is video post-verdict of Don Adelson being wheeled out in a wheelchair. Yeah. Do you expect at sentencing to see her being wheeled in and basically begging for mercy? Tim Jansen, I have to admit, I didn't fully understand it. He was talking about somehow the defense trying to get count one either minimized or dropped. I didn't understand it, but either way, is she not facing whether it's 30 years or 20 years, I don't think she's seeing the light of day. Am I right about that?
She's getting life. She's principles of first-degree murder. It's life in prison. She's getting life. She's not going to see the light of day again outside of the prison, and she will show up in the wheelchair and ask for special circumstances, the departure, all that stuff, and she's going to get life in prison. So that's the end of Donna, and she only has herself to blame. And she's still, I mean, I think that the judge, you can tell how annoyed he was with her when she blurted out afterwards, still yelling, and it's not even crocodile tears because I didn't see any tears.
Yeah.
But
that's my next question to you. Sorry for interrupting. Will Judge Stephen Everett take a moment on Monday or a few minutes to address her or address the Markells? Is he going to take the opportunity to say something? Because I too think I don't want to say it's become personal for him. I think it's become personal for Georgia, but I definitely think that Judge Everett was ticked off with her at the very least.
He was. He may light her up a little bit in his comments. He could, but because he's likely to be the judge for the next trial too, I don't know. He may just not give any more reasons for her to have any appeal and just sentence her and just let it be. Judge Everett has really done a great job, been very professional throughout this whole matter in the multiple trials that he's had. And I think that because this is likely not the end, I'd say he probably does not stray too far from what we'd expect a judge to say.
Jeremy, obviously, Dave making some bold predictions here, which I like. We've got the sentencing on Monday. Dave believes that we're going to see another indictment. Man, would I be chugging that Pepto. But is there anything that, a lot of times people have regrets. Do you have any regrets as it pertains to Dan? Like, is there anything that you ever wish you told Dan that you didn't? And just your final thoughts about this bittersweet day.
Sure. I mean, that's, there are a lot of things that I wish I could do over again in kind of our relationship with Danny. There's a lot more time that we could have spent together. And, I wish I can still hear his voice in my head, but I don't have any, voicemails. I have some, emails and stuff from him, but, yeah, I just wish I had some more kind of tangible memories there that I could revisit. But no, I mean, I'm grateful for the time that we got to spend together. I hate that it seems like in kind of the arc of his life, his outlook, there were really happy times early on when we met, when just the two of them together, and then we saw them through darker times. I know actually this birthday reminds me of his 40th birthday that we spent together. He kind of had to get together at his house. This is in October of 2012, and shortly after the Pearl Harbor and after the divorce was kind of thrust on him, and he was really having a hard time. It was like it's a dismal birthday kind of experience at his house there. And what we saw him through that and coming out, Josh referenced a girlfriend that he had, and he was really kind of in on better footing and had kind of a new outlook just before he passed. And so, I hate that I didn't get to see him through kind of some other chapters in his life. I know that we have kids who are the same age. My daughter's a freshman in college now, and he would have been seeing his boys through high school today and preparing them for their next chapters and thinking through college with them. And I just hate for the boys that they don't have him to help kind of guide them through that now. So
Yeah, there's one question that there's one question I wanted to ask Josh, and I'll ask him offline. But to you, because he made it pretty clear that he thought it was the family after Danny was shot and subsequently died from his injuries. Did any of you try to reach out to Wendy right after the shooting? To ask, hey, what happened here? Do you know what happened? Do you know anything? Did any of you guys did that cross any of your minds?
So we saw her at the memorial service. So he died on a Friday. The memorial service was that Sunday, and talked to her there. And I remember it was a really moving conversation where she said, she was crying. She said, hey, I'm a single mom now. We have these two boys to raise, and I have these two boys to raise, and I hope that you'll be kind of in their lives and supporting us, because we'd kind of been on Team Danny and hadn't talked to Wendy in a long time at that stage. And we said, of course, we'll be there for you and for Ben and Lincoln, and with anything that you need from us, we're here for you. And that was kind of sort of an olive branch extended between us, and that was on Sunday. And as far as I know, she left Monday, and I hadn't spoken to her since that moment there. So
wow, that's pretty heavy. Pretty heavy stuff. Patriotic, Dave Ehrenberg. Look at this. People are archiving your ex posts, still holding on to the hope that came from attorney Ehrenberg. September 5th, 2025 ex post, Dave. Everything can and will be held against you, Dave Ehrenberg, in a court of public opinion, in the court of the cesspool that is X, in which he said, and I quote Dave Ehrenberg here, I fully expect Wendy to be the next stop on the justice train, and soon. There you go. Dave Ehrenberg, they're watching you. Look at this.
You, Patriotiak. I
appreciate
that. Patriotiak.
Patriotiak. And Jackie Pike, you're not the only one whose life revolves around STS, but the more addicts, the better. My life revolves around it too. Dave Ehrenberg, you get the final word here tonight. I just want to say, look at Dan's friends. You've got Jeremy, you had Josh, you have the former Florida state attorney who is Florida Man and his YouTube channel. 3 super smart guys, 3 super kind guys. Those are the types of guys who Dan Markel rolled with. Smart and handsome, I might add. But Dave Ehrenberg, your final thoughts on this? I keep saying bittersweet, but it's sort of more sad than sweet, I think, that he's no longer with us today.
Yeah, I just think of the children. I think of the 2 boys. It didn't seem like the adults in the room seemed to care very much about them. They cared about themselves. And even though Donna called them her sunshines, she didn't really care deeply about them, that she was mocking Ben or surprised that Ben would be so sad about seeing his father gone for the rest of his life, not having a father anymore. I mean, what a selfish act. And you can say it definitively because she was convicted. I'm not going to say this about Wendy because that hasn't happened yet. But I will finish with this. I do think it will be hard for a jury to believe that the grandmother was involved, the mother was involved, the brother was involved, and yet the ex-wife, the daughter, was not involved in some way. She didn't know about it, nothing to do with it. They kept her totally in the dark. I got to tell you, when you saw that juror come out, the jury foreperson, and said that there's no way she didn't know, there's no way she wasn't involved. And remember, she saw all the evidence, and this was not Wendy's trial. This was Charlie's trial, and yet she's convinced. So yes, if you're Wendy, you don't want to be buying green bananas right now.
That's a good line. I'm going to use that. You want to stay tuned. That's what it says on my shirt. Stay tuned. Hat says justice for Dan Markel. Sentencing is on Monday, 3:00. That is what we. Yeah, go ahead, Dave.
I gotta go, but it's great to be on with you guys. Thank you,
Dave. You're the man. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Jeremy, thank you for being here, and we appreciate you helping paint this picture of Dan. It helps a lot, so we appreciate you being here.
I appreciate you having me, Joel. And let me ask you. I think I sent you 3 pictures. I've seen 2 of them up. Do you have that 3rd picture that I sent you available that you could pull up by chance?
This I've got this one. What is maybe this one? Is that it? That's not
Nope.
it.
It was another picture from Wendy's 30th birthday party.
The COE. I don't think we have it. I'm sorry. The COE loaded them in, and but we could put them up. What did you want to make a comment about it?
I mean, in that picture, you can see,
this is not
my
it,
daughter, but no. But in the background, you can see Donna. Just as happy as she could be. She looked beautiful, and that was such a happy day. You could see Charlie, who this is in April 2009, and he was young and handsome and kind of had the whole world in front of him. You see Rob and his wife Aretha there, and the family was just a nice, happy, cohesive unit there to celebrate Wendy, and Wendy and Danny were as happy as they could be, and it was just such a great celebration at that time. 30th birthday for Wendy there in April 2009, and it's just, you fast forward to today, Danny's 53rd birthday, and you think about how obviously Danny's life was cut short way too soon, but those lives of the people in that room also have been blown up of their own doing, right? But it's just such a tragedy. A decision was made by that family that had just such devastating consequences. And Joel, I appreciate you and this podcast for shining a light on Danny, as you always do, and helping us remember him today.
And thank you. And we'll put those photos into our Patreon page. I have a feeling the COE did not put that up because she did not want to see a smiling Donna. And by the way, just to add to what Dave was saying, I agree. The wheels of justice are going to continue to turn. If Harvey Adelson was, let's say, 65 and not a decrepit looking 82, trust me, I don't think the story would end with Wendy either. My own mother said from day one, she believes Harvey is complicit. There's no way a guy that's that frugal about money didn't know where money was going to pay for these hitmen. So we'll see how things evolve. The story is still far from over. Today would have been Dan Markel's 53rd birthday. If you have a moment today, wish him a happy birthday in your own way. We'll see you tomorrow at 12:30. Dr. G Explains and Carm on Donna in her wheelchair. Monday, sentencing at 3, and then we'll do a recap show. Joe Patuto and Tim Jansen will be here to break down the sentencing. And then Tuesday, we're bringing, I'm hoping to bring back for first time appearance, a former inmate doing hard time. She's in her late 60s, and she can talk and speak to what it is like for a senior citizen to do hard time, which is Donna's future. Love you, America. Love you, Tallahassee. Justice for Dan Markel and his entire family. Jeremy, thanks again.